Welcome to Lifetime Talks and our series on performance and longevity with MIORA. I'm Jamie Martin, and I'm here today with Dr. Greg Pippert, who is the medical director of MIORA, to talk about optimizing your thyroid, which fuels your body's metabolism. The thyroid is a small gland that's located in the front of your throat, but it controls big processes in the body, including how it turns food and oxygen into energy. An estimated 1 in 7 people are affected by thyroid issues, though they may not be aware that their thyroid is behind whatever their symptoms might be. So, Greg and I are going to be talking about the role that thyroid plays in overall health, identifying common symptoms of the imbalance, and discussing key biomarkers that can tell the story of how the thyroid is functioning. Greg, thanks for coming back with me.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right in. Let's talk about the important role that the thyroid plays in overall health and the processes that it's responsible for in our bodies.
We said it earlier, metabolism. I mean,
Right.
that's what we mostly think about the thyroid for is
Right.
metabolism. So, it converts food to energy. It affects how we burn calories. So when we think about high thyroid, low thyroid levels, we think about things like weight gain on the low end. We think about weight loss on the high end,
Okay.
not good weight loss. We also think about its effect on cardiac health.
Okay.
Basically, there are thyroid hormone receptors on every cell in our body.
Okay.
So it's not like we can target one organ or another. It affects everything. But just specifically to think about the cardiac system. So hypothyroidism or low thyroid function can contribute to things like increased risk of heart disease, congestive heart failure.
Mm.
But too much thyroid hormone, you're driving the heart fast. Arrhythmias, atrial fibrillation, tachycardia, so overstimulation.
Got it.
And we think about the skin, the hair. I mean, it functions in so many things. So hypothyroid, thinning hair, dry skin.
Mhm.
So we need thyroid for those organs. So it really touches everything that we encounter in our life.
Right. So what are some of the, how can it contribute to thyroid imbalances, or what contributes to thyroid imbalances in the
Sure.
body?
So thyroid hormone, it's a series of two hormones, which we'll
Okay.
talk about, I'm sure.
Yes.
But they're operating in our body, and they have to operate in a way that is impacted by other things. So things that can impact the how thyroid hormone works are, say, endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Okay.
So endocrine disrupting chemicals are just what they sound like. They're chemicals that disrupt our endocrine system, and thyroid hormone, well, the thyroid system is an endocrine gland.
Okay.
So we're disrupting how those hormones work. So they may impact, we're not going to make the thyroid hormone as well, or we're not going to be able to respond to when we need more or don't need more. So the signaling is off.
Okay.
And those chemicals are things we find in plastics, fragrances, residues in our food, pesticides, herbicides. So they're everywhere, and they're really impacting that. Now, what other things can impact thyroid function? Immune issues.
Okay.
So the thyroid gland seems to be a target of the immune system more frequently than a lot of other things. It's one of the Hashimoto's,
Yep.
one of the most common autoimmune issues. Now, it's really common in females. It's about 10 times more common in females than it is in males. So it's when the immune system maybe gets triggered by something. It might be an imbalance in the gut, a bacterial imbalance, or a food sensitivity. Your body
Okay.
starts to attack that. Or maybe a virus.
Okay.
And then the immune system starts to look for other things that were a little bit like what it was just attacking. And then the thyroid gets in the crosshairs. And now that just runs with it. And so now you're going to start attacking thyroid function. Well, you're going to degrade that function, and you're going to be able to make less and less thyroid hormone. So that's another impact of thing that can impact thyroid hormone. Stress, cortisol,
Yes.
a biggie. So we're all stressed.
Mm-hmm.
We need cortisol when we need it, but when we're constantly running hot, that cortisol impacts how the hormone works. So if you have a high cortisol level, the receptor and the thyroid hormone are not going to impact each other quite as effectively. So you can have an appropriate thyroid hormone level, but it won't feel like it because it's not working in the same way. And stress also impacts how we message, or the thyroid, the need for thyroid hormone.
Okay.
And you think about that and metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're stressed, what often happens? Well, we can gain weight. So is it the cortisol? Is it the thyroid? Is it both?
Yeah.
Could be a lot of things. So that's another thing that can impact it. And then just good general health. We need good nutrition. If we're not getting the right micronutrients to support the thyroid hormone,
Right.
we can't make it. So, thyroid hormone it's made of a lot of different nutrients. If you don't have the right building blocks, you can't make the hormone.
So let's talk about some of those
Yeah.
nutrients, because there's iodine, ferritin, selenium, chromium,
Mhm.
like what those are like some of those
Yeah.
kind of nutrients you're talking about.
Yeah, so iodine and selenium are one of the things, or the two of the ones we think most frequently about the thyroid.
Yep.
Um, that's why we iodize salt, because we
Mm.
live in an area that used to be called the goiter belt.
Mm.
We didn't have enough iron in the soil. We don't eat seafood. We don't have sushi every night.
Right.
So we aren't getting enough iodine in. And so we put it in the salt, and that takes care of it. But we have to be careful with iodine because we can overdo. And there are people that will take a lot of iodine. The problem is, if you overdo with iodine,
Yep.
you can either suppress thyroid function, so you're trying to fix the problem, but you're actually causing the problem to persist.
Yep. So it's a
Or
fine
it
balance
is,
again.
or you can overstimulate the thyroid with iodine and create thyroid storm or hyperthyroidism with too much iodine.
Mhm.
Selenium, similar.
Okay.
Too much can create thyroid imbalance, but selenium in particular works the conversion of the T4, the main thyroid hormone, to the more active T3, which we'll probably talk about
Yep.
later. There's iron or ferritin. So iron is needed for the production of thyroid hormone, another micronutrient that we would need. So if we're anemic, or if you're a cycling female and you're less and less and less iron in storage, it's
Yep.
going to be harder to make the right thyroid hormone.
Okay.
Tyrosine, I think you mentioned, that's
Yep.
the building block, the amino acid that's the building block of thyroid hormone. So if we're not getting that in, we can't build the hormone.
Okay. Chromium. That's
Chromium.
another one I
Yeah, so
mentioned.
chromium is involved in both thyroid production, but also good blood sugar stability.
Mm.
And when our blood sugars are off, we're becoming more insulin resistant. Sometimes the thyroid can become a little collateral damage,
Ah.
or the thyroid hormone can.
Yeah, again, nothing in isolation.
Right.
Two other things that I want to make sure we address: overtraining when it comes to exercise. And then the second one is certain prescription drugs could be
Right.
having an impact. So talk a little
Absolutely.
about both those two
So
things.
overtraining, more is always better, right?
No,
So,
we're gonna go backward from there.
right. No, overtraining is a stressor.
Yeah.
It's that in a nutshell.
Mhm.
So by pushing the body, pushing the body, pushing the body, the body is now having to deal with that stressor. What's it going to do? It's going to kick up more cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine,
Yep.
the stress hormones, which in turn circle back to what we were saying earlier, degrade the ability to make thyroid hormone, or the signaling may be off. So too much is not good. So it's that Goldilocks thing, not
Right.
too little, not too much, just right.
Yeah.
And medications. So there's a couple of issues when we come to medications and thyroid hormones. So there are medications that directly impact the function of thyroid hormone. Certain diuretics or water pills. Amiodarone, a cardiac medication,
Okay.
is a problem with thyroid hormone production. Lithium, another medication. Anti-inflammatory steroids can affect that, and we think we go on prednisone for something. It may impact your thyroid hormone. So those medications that we might take, we just have to take into consideration, is that impacting thyroid hormone? Now, there's also estrogen.
Mm.
So estrogen, when taken especially orally, which we don't do in MIORA for
Okay.
reasons of when we take estrogen, we increase clotting risk.
Okay.
But estrogen, when it goes up, increases, especially if it's taken orally, increases something called thyroid binding globulin,
Mm.
so protein. So it grabs onto the thyroid hormone and, well, let's just use it. So you may have good thyroid hormone levels, but it doesn't feel like it. So we'll see that happen in pregnancy. So when
Yes.
estrogen levels go very high, thyroid binding globulin level goes high, and the TSH becomes a little harder to read, because we'll start to see that. So estrogen in that way affects it. But then also there's the absorption of thyroid hormone when we're actually taking thyroid hormone. So aluminum, calcium, magnesium, like things in antacids,
Yep.
if you take that in proximity to your oral thyroid medication, you're not going to absorb it.
Interesting.
And so that's why we say take thyroid hormone in isolation, empty stomach. Don't eat or drink anything other than, say, water or black coffee for 30 to 60 minutes on either side. Now, the cream in your coffee may have calcium, or your milk may have calcium in
Right.
it, which then negates the absorption of the thyroid hormone. So we have
So
to
you
be
need to
careful
be
how we take it.
aware.
You have to.
Yeah.
So a hint we usually give people is just put your thyroid hormone in your bathroom. When you first get up in the morning to go to the bathroom, take it and then do your stuff. By the time you get to the kitchen, you probably can start thinking about brewing your coffee and then later making breakfast.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about we talked about things that affect the
Yeah.
thyroid, right? Let's talk about those hormones that you mentioned. So I want to make sure we touch on like the T3,
Yeah.
T4, and then you said TSH as
Yeah.
well. So let's talk through those specifically.
So TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. That's your pituitary gland registering how much thyroid hormone is in the bloodstream and reacting accordingly. So if the pituitary gland doesn't see enough thyroid hormone, it kicks out more TSH. Thyroid stimulating hormone is trying to make your thyroid
To
gland
get
make more
more.
hormone. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of a gauge. Think about it like your thermostat on the wall,
Yep.
controlling your furnace. So the main thyroid hormone we make is T4.
Okay.
Uh, the body will then, through gut interaction, which is why gut health is important in thyroid,
Right.
also in the liver and the muscles, we will convert T4 to the more active T3. So a deficient T3 isn't necessarily a thyroid issue, but more of a conversion issue. Now that's where selenium comes into play, because selenium increases the conversion of T4 to T3, or
Okay.
supports that. T3 is the more active, the higher octane version of thyroid hormone.
Okay.
And those are both available in commercial medications, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, we know that millions of people are suffering from thyroid issues. They may not know why or where their symptoms are stemming from. What are some of the symptoms that somebody might be feeling if they are having an off-balance
Yeah.
thyroid?
Yeah. So think about metabolism, weight gain.
Mm.
Mhm. But then we also think about energy, because thyroid is involved in energy production. So the person who had just says, I am fatigued, I could get 8, 9 hours of sleep. It's good restful sleep. My Fitbit tells me I slept wonderfully,
And I'm
and they're
still
still
tired. Yeah. Okay.
um, cold intolerance. People say, I am colder than anybody else in the room. Even in the summer, I'm cold.
Mm.
So that cold intolerance may be a symptom of suboptimal thyroid function. Fingernail issues, thin fingernails, ridged fingernails, hair loss,
Mm.
dry skin, dry everything, dry eyes can be a symptom of low thyroid. Now, if we think about on the high end, so a hyperactive thyroid, hyperthyroidism, that's more revving things up. That's anxiety, palpitations, heart skipping, heart rhythm disturbance,
Okay.
weight loss, insomnia.
Okay. Whew, that's a lot. And so
Right,
it's like, how do you know where that's coming from? Again, this is where I think
right,
some of the confusion can come. It's like you don't think necessarily about your thyroid right away because, oh, I'm going to connect, the weight gain to
right.
something else instead or
And then
whatever.
in addition to those, then we think about gastrointestinal things. Low thyroid slows everything down. So
Right.
constipation is a big symptom in
Mm,
hypothyroidism. And then we think about the effect on the brain.
mm,
So we get foggy. We need thyroid hormone for brain function. So depression, foggy thinking. So those are a big player sometimes. And then cardiac function. We need, like I said, too much thyroid drives the heart too hard, but we
right.
need thyroid function, or a thyroid hormone, for the heart to function well. So we can
Okay.
get congestive heart failure with low thyroid hormone levels. We have increased cardiovascular risk with low thyroid hormone levels.
Okay. Let's stay on the path of low thyroid function. So we're saying there's been some correlation between low thyroid function and body composition
Yes.
and other health issues. So can you just explain what that looks like and why or
Mhm.
what that correlation is?
Right. So since thyroid hormone is involved in our metabolism, if we're slowing metabolism down,
Yeah.
we're not using those calories to burn.
Okay.
We're going to store them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're still taking your, 1,600 calories in, but now you're only burning 1,000 because your metabolism is slowed, those extra 600 got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd be stored as body fat.
Okay.
Plus, if you're fatigued because you really don't have any energy, you're not going to exercise, that physical sluggishness, well, we're not going to physically burn the calories. We're not going to exercise, not going to
Right.
be motivated to exercise. So it's both in fatigue and how we process those calories.
Got it. Okay. So what can we do to identify thyroid issues? Like if I've got all of these symptoms happening, I'm not sure what the source is. How do you test for it? And what are some key biomarkers
So
for thyroid issues?
now the classic biomarker is your TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Now that's a screen is the way I look at it, because you're looking at the brain's perception of how much thyroid you have, but you're not really looking at the thyroid hormone. So
Yep.
what you want to look at is the free T4 and the free T3.
Yep.
Those are the most usable levels of the hormone. Those are the thyroid hormones that are not bound to that thyroid binding globulin.
Yep.
And looking at the ratio between T4 and T3. So you want to look at T4, T3 and the ratio.
Got it.
Now, something we didn't touch on as much earlier is the autoimmune issues.
Mm.
And so what we really also want to look at is the thyroid peroxidase antibody and the thyroid globulin antibody. Now, these are antibodies that we produce against the thyroid gland or parts of the thyroid gland. And if we see those are elevated, we know your immune system is just chiseling away a little bit, little by little, at thyroid function.
It's kind of nagging at it
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So if we don't try and work on that,
Okay.
we'll continue to lose thyroid functions. And plus, if we see somebody maybe with a questionable thyroid
Mm-hmm.
panel, but we know they have high antibody levels, we know they have a thyroid problem.
Okay.
It's real. So we would probably treat them a little differently, because we know where they're going.
Right.
And then cortisol.
Always
because
back to cortisol,
I
man.
keep coming
Man.
back to that. So cortisol impacts how the hormonal receptor work.
Yep.
It impacts how we make thyroid hormones. So if you got somebody that has really high cortisol, or maybe a bad cortisol curve, we flatten the curve, their
Yep.
morning awakening response is not good, the thyroid hormone may not work as well,
Mhm.
or we may not produce it as well. So it's important to know where we're at stress-wise.
Yep.
Um, so those would be the kind of the biomarkers that I would look at when I'm
Okay.
looking at thyroid function.
Great. So they're identified. Now you're starting to
Mhm.
see this in the larger context, which we're always talking about, right? Of like your overall health. You see kind of this is the area you're going to focus on. What are the options? Like, where does someone start if they're like, okay, I know that this is my primary focus
Right.
for the time being?
Right. So if somebody's got maybe a borderline
Hmm.
level of thyroid, not sure we really want to treat this. It doesn't maybe meet that level, but you've got a lot of symptoms, and we're pretty convinced they're not coming from somewhere else.
Right.
Now we still have addressed all the other lifestyle things which we need
Yes.
to address. You may approach that from a nutrient-based approach,
Mm.
looking at the iodine, the selenium, zinc. And like I said earlier, those are things that we want to be careful with. So that's best done under the guidance of a provider that can monitor your thyroid hormone levels and your TSH level to make sure we're not taking it too far, or make sure we're actually, you know, doing what we need to do.
Right.
Tyrosine, the building block, and there are different groups of supplements, things that are combined together, maybe hit everything.
Hmm.
So you can use a nutrient-based approach. Um, and then if you see an autoimmune response, but maybe good thyroid function, you want to focus on the immune response, and that's
Hmm.
gastrointestinal health.
Yep.
Often that stems from food intolerances, from gastrointestinal inflammation. So then we're talking about gastrointestinal supplements, probiotics, fiber, all the things we can do to support the gut,
Yep.
and even something called Magicare, which may down-regulate an overactive immune system.
Okay.
So that would be kind of a nutrient-based approach for the gut to support thyroid function. But say maybe we really think, okay, you really need thyroid hormone. What are our options? So there's levothyroxine, which is T4. Now
Okay.
it's a bioidentical version of T4, which is the main thyroid hormone that we make. Now that's the most commonly used thyroid prescription, levothyroxine, or
Okay.
Synthroid is a brand name. Um, then there's T3, which is also available as a medication called liothyronine.
Okay.
And so oftentimes providers may start with T4, levothyroxine, and honestly, many of us convert T4 to T3 quite well.
Okay.
So we give T4, the body turns it into T3, and we're happy and symptoms get better.
Yep.
But some of us, because of stress primarily,
Yeah.
that's all, or maybe selenium deficiency, don't convert T4 to T3 as well. So that's where you can bring that T3 in, and that's the person that needs that will tell you. They'll say, that made all the difference because it's
They'll
the higher,
know.
yeah, that's the higher acting, the higher potency thyroid hormone.
Okay.
So you can bring that in, and so you use the two hormones or two medications together. And the nice thing about having them separate is you can fine tune
Mm-hmm.
up, down a little bit to fine tune the TSH versus your T4, T3 levels versus symptoms.
Got it.
Uh, and then there's the natural desiccated thyroid hormones. So those are derived from pork thyroid. We're very close to pigs, by the way. So we can take their thyroid gland and it suffices for our replacement. Now, the plus is that contains T4, T3, and some T3 to some T2 as well, some other minor thyroid hormones. So the nice thing is it's all in one.
Okay.
A negative is that you can't control the balance, and a pig's ratio of T4 to T3 is really a little different than ours.
Okay.
So it's a natural approach. It's still a pharmaceutical. It is a drug.
Yep.
But it's some people perceive it as a more natural approach. Now, a little quirk to that though is individuals that have a Hashimoto's or have an autoimmune response to their thyroid gland might not tolerate pork thyroid gland
Okay.
because it's like taking something you're already reacting to.
So when you say take the pork thyroid gland, I mean, that's still a medication
It is a
that you're
medication
taking.
made into it. They're
Yes. Okay.
standardized. We know per tablet how much T4 and T3. That was an old argument against the
Okay.
natural desiccated thyroid is pig A didn't have the same thyroid hormone as pig B.
Yep.
They are standardized,
Okay. Got it.
but they're pork-based.
Okay. Oh gosh, there's a lot here. Like it really is independent again on your individual levels. Is there a way to test how somebody converts T4 to T3? Is there a way to identify that, or is it really just kind of talking with the patient and looking at that lab work?
It's looking at
The lab
at
work.
the lab work and the
Okay.
levels. Yeah, from a symptom standpoint, we really can't tell.
Okay.
Unless you add the T3 in and they say, oh, that was so much better.
Yeah. When somebody does start to feel better, what does that look like? What are some of the common things that you might hear from a patient like, "Oh, all of a sudden I'm feeling more energetic," or what is
Yeah, they'll
that?
say, my energy's back.
Okay.
I'm actually getting to the end of my day and I still have a little something in the tank to do
Okay.
something either fun or something I need to do.
Okay.
They'll say, that weight that was slowly creeping up and I really couldn't fix it
Yeah.
is now starting to recede. It may
Okay.
not be quick, but they're feeling like they're getting their body back.
Okay.
Mental clarity, they'll say, wow, I'm having thoughts again.
Yeah.
You know, I
It's
have
not
clarity of
foggy and,
thinking.
like, loss of train of thought loss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I can process things better.
Yeah.
I'm clear. I feel better. And mood, mood can lift. Like we said, depression can be along with low thyroid. So they'll say my mood's better. So it really is, when you think about the things that it can impact, our energy,
Yeah.
our mood, our mental clarity, our metabolism, it can be life-changing when you find that person who really needed that. And to not be constipated is probably not a bad thing either.
Right, you wanna feel better in that
Yes.
regard.
Yes.
So, let's talk about how this kind of protocol, if you're saying, "Okay, yes, you're gonna take T4," how does that fit in with all the other lifestyle factors that we so often talk about? We always talk about sleep, we talk about stress management, exercise, nutrition. How do these things all fit together as part of a comprehensive
Mhm.
approach?
Simply giving thyroid hormone and expecting to feel better if we're sleeping 4 hours a night, not
Yeah,
gonna happen.
right.
So, we need so we can function better in general and have lower cortisol levels and lower stress levels, we need to get to sleep. If we're eating a nutrition poor diet, yeah, your metabolism is better, but you're not healthier.
Right.
So, working on the nutrients, and then exercise, because that dovetails nicely with thyroid hormone, because now I have energy, I can exercise, which is gonna lower my blood sugar level, it's gonna improve my muscle mass and my strength, and now I feel like going out and doing more.
Yeah. Are there, like, when it comes to the nutrition and supplementation, targeted things that you can do that are more specific
Yeah.
for the thyroid?
Well, that would be your iodine, selenium,
Yep.
tyrosine, but then something like ashwagandha, which
Mhm.
is an adaptogen herb for the adrenal glands, but it also helps to improve thyroid function.
Okay.
And so there's that. Those would be the main things I would pull out.
The main ones for
Mhm.
those. Okay, so we moved quickly through that. I think it's so interesting to see like how like the pituitary gland with TSH to the or to the thyroid and then T4 to T3. I mean, everything is such a like, okay, this affects this. Plus it's got all these other hormones and things coming in from across the body. Did we miss anything? I mean, of course we did, but anything that you want to make sure that we cover in this episode around thyroid?
Just making sure that if people are feeling fatigued, their metabolism is off, that at least it's part of the workup. We should be
Right.
always be looking at thyroid hormone, is whether we're looking at blood sugar, hormone balance, like sex hormone balance.
Yep.
We should be looking at thyroid function because it does change with age,
Yep.
and making sure that we address the autoimmune issue.
Mhm.
Don't ignore the gut.
Yep.
Yeah, we have to take care of that, and not simply accepting somebody saying, well, your TSH is the only thing I'm willing to check and it's normal. Well,
Right.
maybe you have an autoimmune issue. Maybe your TSH is barely normal, but
Right.
you have almost no T4 and T3,
Right.
because that crosstalk may not be appropriate. And that's where the stress hormone may be playing a role, that a provider that's only looking at TSH won't appreciate that.
Right, and that's what I was just gonna add is, like, making sure to ask for you sometimes have to ask
Yes,
specifically for, like, the T4, T3 testing
you
the
do. And
to be able
especially
to get that.
especially the antibodies, you need
Yeah,
to ask. Now, something we didn't touch base on, there is
awesome.
something called reverse T3.
Mm,
So reverse T3, to make it brief, is our body turns T4, which has 4 iodines, into T3, which has 3 iodines.
okay.
So there's an enzyme that pulls one of the iodines off at T3. Well, there's an enzyme that pulls the opposite iodine off, and it's reverse T3.
Okay.
So reverse T3 is an inactive form of thyroid hormone,
Ah,
inactive T3. And so it doesn't work. It plugs into a receptor, but doesn't do anything.
mm,
You might think, why would I make an active T3? Why would the body do that?
yeah,
Think about it like our emergency brake.
mm,
Reverse T3 is made in times of starvation and massive stress,
okay,
when every calorie counts.
okay,
You do not want to waste any bit of energy. You're struggling for survival.
okay,
And so the body will flip that switch. Reverse T3 goes up, maybe floods the system, plugs your thyroid hormone receptors, your metabolism slows
okay.
to save your life. Now, that's really productive then.
Yeah,
But some of us become conditioned to make too much reverse T3. How do we get that? Yo-yo dieting. Because we're putting our body in starvation mode, and then we're eating, and then we're starving.
Yep.
And we can condition the body to crank up that reverse deiodinase enzyme. So it is a real thing. It's not a super common thing, but it's a real thing. And if you know someone's reverse T3 is elevated,
Hmm.
we have to approach the thyroid replacement in a different way.
Okay.
You just throw T4 at them, they're just going to make more reverse T3, and you're none the better.
Yeah, they're not. It's not really doing anything. You're in the same situation you
Correct.
started in.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I'm glad we got to that. Okay, now anything else? Any last minute
Give me a
thyroid
minute. Give me.
thoughts? Yeah.
No, it's really, as we talk with a lot of things, it's being your own advocate.
Yeah.
Saying, I think I have a concern, and ask the question, because the worst that's going to happen is we're going to look at a thyroid panel and go, well, it would have been an easy thing to fix if that was the problem, but
Right.
it's not the problem. But at least we know.
Yep.
Ignoring it doesn't make it go away. So being your own advocate, asking for the testing,
Yep.
making sure they're doing your provider's doing a complete evaluation, and then following through with the lifestyle stuff.
Mhm.
Because like all things, we simply take a hormone and we've got all these symptoms and we're behaving poorly.
Yep.
We're not going to feel better. We're not going to be the optimal person we could be.
Right. And again, we want to have the longest health span in our
Right.
lifespan. And this is one thing that we can, again, look at to ideally feel
Absolutely.
better for the long term.
When you think about the number of things that thyroid hormone impacts and how those things like metabolism impact our long-term aging,
Mhm.
it's huge.
Yep. All right, Greg, thank you so much for joining me again. If our listeners and viewers want to learn more, they can visit miora.lifetime.life. And that's what we've got. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having
We'll
me.
see you again soon.